This is the CitizenLink Report.
If you find our insights helpful, would you support our video efforts? Your gift of $25 or more goes a long ways. Covers the crew, lights, cameras, all that. Just click on Donate. Thanks from all of us. So an impasse in Congress shut some of the government down, but this administration is leveraging it in ways we've never seen before. This is the CitizenLink Report. Hi, I'm Stuart Shepard, along with our Executive Director, Tom Minnery. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Stuart.
You may notice we're borrowing Tom's office for this particular episode. Our team that usually shoots these for us is working on the Date Night Challenge, which they're recording tonight. So they said, can we have the day off? And we said, yeah, we can make that work for you.
Oh, I thought this was because of the government shutdown.
Yeah, they kicked us right off the set. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is this partial shutdown of the U.S. government. Tom, to set up the conversation, I want to just talk about some of the headlines we've been seeing. Listen to this. World War II veterans, you probably heard about this. Many of them in wheelchairs are blocked from entering the World War II memorial. Thankfully, they push on through the barricades anyway. A private inn on the Blue Ridge Parkway defiantly opens after being told to shut down because they're leasing federal land. And about 2 hours later, the National Park Service blocks the parking lot and makes them close. A precious elderly couple on Lake Mead has owned a cabin since the 70s. It sits on federal land, so the National Park Service kicked them out of their house. They had to go to Walmart to buy some clothes because they weren't allowed to go back in. Tom, the last time the government shut down was back in the winter of 95 and 96. We had a Democrat president, Bill Clinton, a Republican-led House, Newt Gingrich. And did all this happen back then? I mean, you remember it well.
I do. It did not happen back then. There was not this nastiness about it. I mean, for heaven's sakes. The World War II memorial is just a pavilion. You walk across it. You don't step into it. You don't open a door. You don't have to turn on the lights. Seems to me it's more work to put barricades around it than it is just to let people go through it. I don't know what gives here, other than it's probably the same phenomenon we saw last time when the president shut down tours at the White House, for heaven's sakes.
And you're talking about the sequester.
That's right, that's right. But the idea to make this as difficult for ordinary people as possible doesn't seem to be necessary.
But this seems to be a regular play of this administration to take an event like this and use it to make people inconvenienced, in this case, kicked out of their home. That's kind of painful. World War II vets, that memorial will eventually, and soon enough, memorialize all those guys who were in the wheelchairs trying to get in.
Well, yes, and I don't think it's working. Just as the canceling of the White House tours last time did not work, I don't think people are en masse blaming Republicans for all of this, for the inconvenience. It just seems to be something that's mean by the White House.
Let's talk about that briefly. The administration and the Senate, Harry Reid, the Senate Majority Leader, and the mainstream media following their lead, mostly blaming, those extremist Republicans in Congress, the Tea Partiers who have pushed this too far this time. Is that where you place the blame?
Well, in a sense, yes. There is this faction in the Republican Party, the Tea Party caucus, which has had enough because they were elected by people who have had enough with the government spending way beyond its ability to afford the expenditures. And nobody's saying, that's right, let's sit down, let's negotiate, let's come to reason about what we can cut back. The president is unwilling to negotiate. Other than that, he's happy to talk to Republicans. And these discussions with Republican leaders haven't produced much in the last couple of crises, so we have low expectations here.
So one could just as easily say that the president and the Senate in particular have shut the government down because they want to hang on to Obamacare and not delay it for a year.
Well, that's true, and when you look at it from the White House perspective, this is the signature accomplishment of the entire first term. It's already not working well for the White House to step up and say, we agree it shouldn't work at all, is not something they're going to go to. So I don't think the Republicans are going to be successful by continuing to play this hand ultimately. And I do not see the end game. I do think enough signals have been sent about the shutdown of the government to realize that nobody wants this, and I don't think we'll get there. but it's brinksmanship. We've seen it before in Washington, not to this degree, however.
I've been posting some of the news articles about the stories we talked about at the beginning of this video on my Facebook page, and at least one person commented, well, this is all Congress's fault for kicking the people out of their homes, closing the inn on the Parkway, keeping the World War II vets out. But that's not where it comes from, because all of those are under the National Park Service, which is under the Department of Interior, which is run by a cabinet-level position at the White House. Now, one might say, well, how do you know it came down for the White House? Well, we don't. It sure looks like it does. But one thing we know for sure, the White House could say, stop that. But instead, this has gone on for a week, and it's been increasing in magnitude.
Well, it has. And just to take you back to the president's very first speech when he was first elected to president, he said he wants to turn the page on the old politics of division. He wants to end the politics that breeds division. He wants to help people discover the bonds we have between them. When he said that way back in 2009, I think people were saying, yes, yes. But you think of what kind of rhetoric is coming from the president's allies, although not directly. His allies have been calling the Republicans jihadists, arsonists, anarchists, gun-to-the-head hostage takers, and one of the Democrat leaders called the Republicans people with a bomb strapped to their chest. Come on, come on. This is a time when we need leadership by the leader, who is the president. And to simply turn his back after all of this wonderful speech making and acknowledge and not object to what I've just described, that makes no sense, and that is not leadership.
Now, this is a thought here. The leader of the Congress, or leader of the Senate rather, Harry Reid, and also the president have been trying to keep everything focused on who's to blame for this. But that's, in a sense, like a magician trying to keep your attention misdirected, because at the core of it, this is really about the implementation of the Affordable Care Act, as it's called, which is proving to be pretty unaffordable.
Right. Not only unaffordable, but unworkable. The computer glitches that have been rampant throughout the startup of Obamacare in the first week of October seems to me to be a ready-made opportunity for the president to say, all right, we will put it on hold for a while. Why they have not done that seems to me purely politics. We said October 1st, the Republicans aren't going to push us around. It's almost as if they don't care that people are having a difficult time getting onto the computer system, although I'm sure that's not the case. But this has not been a pleasant scene to watch the rollout with all of the computer glitches like this.
As we wrap up this conversation, what's the ultimate lesson that we can take away from what we've seen over the past week? Elections
have consequences. The Republicans are trying to hold at bay Obamacare when they really control 1/3 of the government. That is to say, 1/2 of 1/3 of the government being the executive branch, the federal courts, and the legislature. The Republicans only hold the lower house of the legislature, the Congress, and you can only hold out like this for so long before you have to realize we're in the minority here. People who don't like what's going on need to step up and vote in more conservatives to change the direction. That's the only end game I see.
You're talking about the Senate in particular.
Yes, and I'm talking about the 2014 midterm elections to send an important signal that people are fed up. And then ultimately, here we go again. The 2016 presidential elections are not that far away. As soon as we have the midterm elections in 2014, all eyes, all commentary will be turned toward who's the front runner for 2016.
Good insights. Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
And thank you for watching. We always love hearing from you. You may write to us at mail@citizenlink.com. We also encourage you to like our Facebook page at facebook.com/citizenlink. We encourage you to pray for our elected officials in the midst of this impasse, and also the government employees who are being directed to do things which frankly are probably unconstitutional. And remember, stand tall and be heard.